Hello. Excuse me? So sorry to bother you, but the captain would like a word.
Hey, what is up everyone? In this video we're talking about the brand new tall tale that was added in the recent Sea of Thieves update. So this new tall tale is called A Quest for Guybrush, and it picks up right after where we left off with the previous tall tale. So in this tall tale we're returning back to Melee Island, and this time we actually get to explore the entire Melee Island. Whereas before we only had a small portion of the island, this time we have the whole island to play around in. And another thing that's nice about this tall tale is it's actually one of the longest tall tales that we have in the game. And sometimes that's not a good thing. Sometimes, length is not the best. But with this one it works out because there's a lot of variety with the stuff that you're doing in this tall tale. So it doesn't feel like the whole thing is super long because you're doing such a wide variety of things. So let's talk about how we start off the tall tale. So we start off talking to Captain Capsize again at Wanda Outpost, and basically we get sent into the Sea of the Dam again to head to Melee Island. On the way there though, we actually get LeChuck's ship that comes up right next to ours, and we get to see his whole crew. They're playing the violin and stuff, which I thought was really cool. And then we have one of the henchmen board our ship, which I just found this character really funny. And then he introduced LeChuck, and then LeChuck is on our ship. And then this whole interaction I thought was really cool when I saw it the first time. And he basically threatens us, saying that if we don't, side with him, then he's gonna, make us pay, and he's gonna take over the Sea of Thieves world, evil villain type things. They eventually leave, and then we're at Melee Island. So when we get to Melee Island, it's still cursed with all the fog that's surrounding a majority of the island. So we have to go to the voodoo lady. She gives us basically some tasks to do, and eventually we have to do this elixir thing that will clear out the rest of the island. This is when the tall tale starts becoming more fun. Up until the curse is broken for the fog, it's kind of annoying in my opinion, because it's you're so hyped up to go explore the rest of the island that you don't really want to have to deal with trying to find pieces of silver and going and doing these fetch quest tasks and trying to interpret where all these things are and that kind of stuff. So I was a little bit frustrated at the start of the tall tale, but once we got the fog lifted and I could start exploring, that's when I had a lot of fun. One of the first cool things that I tried out with this adventure was the new zipline mechanic. So I thought the zipline was really cool. It was a little bit different than I was expecting how it would work. I don't know what exactly I was expecting. I was kind of thinking something similar to how it's implemented in other games like Fortnite and stuff. But I thought the implementation was pretty good. It felt pretty nice. You don't have to wait for it to get all the way to the end. You can kind of jump off the zipline whenever you want. So I could see potential for this zipline system to be used in the main game, maybe on bigger islands where it's kind of harder to traverse and stuff. However, I have a slight feeling that they might not bring this mechanic into other aspects of the game. It would be great if they did, but something just tells me that they're probably not planning on adding it to the main game. Continuing on though, basically the main part of this tall tale is you're doing 3 different trials of pirating, and one of them is doing a little treasure hunt stuff, another one's thieving, and then the final one is sword fighting. And the sword fighting one's really interesting, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. I started off with the treasure hunting, and that was really cool because basically it wasn't like the normal treasure maps and stuff that we were used to. It was kind of more like a guided walk, and then you eventually found it. And I thought it was cool that it had a mix of we saw Guybrush's ghost going through and doing it, and just the environment, going through the forest and walking over log bridges and that kind of stuff. All of that was really cool to me, and it just, I think, exemplifies why this tall tale is great. I think exploring Melee Island in general is what makes this tall tale great, not necessarily what you're actually doing, mainly just looking at everything. Everything's just really nice to look at, and it feels so unique from the rest of Sea of Thieves. So for me, I like the treasure hunting one. I just kind of walking around and looking at everything while I was doing it, but I wouldn't say it was my favorite. It was probably my least favorite of the 3 trials. So the next one I thought was pretty interesting, and this basically had us doing a thievery thing. So out of the 3 trials that we did, the treasure hunting one was probably my least favorite. I liked looking around at everything and stuff, but in terms of compared to everything else that we did in this tall tale, it was my least favorite. The next thing that I did was I went over and did the thieving aspect one. And this is where you got to go meet Stan over at the ship docks, and you got to see some cool things. We saw the Black Pearl in there, and then you saw the Mad Monkey ship, and just some other stuff. Obviously this is where the obsidian cosmetics were, And this was one of the areas that I was slightly disappointed, but I was kind of prepared for this gonna happen. It would have been really cool if you could buy these cosmetics from the shop. I know it's just like for display, but it is kind of disappointing. It's like, just let me buy them. It would have been a cool little feature with the tall tale if like there was additional things you could buy like in the game. It could even help me with like the replayability if it was stuff that like maybe you could only do if you like came back a certain amount of times and like built up enough like credits. I don't know how they would have made it work. I was a little disappointed, but I was kind of prepared since we weren't able to buy anything in the previous Tall Tale. But speaking about this specific part of the Tall Tale, I did really like it. I thought it was pretty fun, where you have like kind of the sleazy salesman just following you around trying to sell you on everything. And I thought it was pretty cool that he was like walking with us and answering things, as opposed to most NPCs in Sea of Thieves, where you basically have to go and walk up to them and they're just stationary. They don't really move, and if they do move, it's basically within like a small little area that's like predefined. Whereas with Stan, he was just following us around, and it wasn't like a preset path. You could go wherever you want and he would just kind of follow you around in that little area. So I found that really cool. I wasn't expecting that to happen. I also liked his dialogue. I thought it was funny with a lot of the stuff that he was saying and just talking about the different ships and everything else. Eventually though, he sends us off to do probably my favorite part of this whole tall tale, which is you have to go talk to this guy, and he basically has like the deed to the ship that we're trying to buy or whatever. So basically we go to this guy named, I think his name's Meat Hook, I might be wrong on that, but you go to his house and he has a deed, but he'll only give it to you if you help him catch the beast. So you do a bunch of things to basically prepare for capturing the beast, and then you get this special shanty. And I got really excited when I saw this, because no one had talked about it yet, and it wasn't like in the reward section for like the Tall Tale tab or whatever. So when I saw that the shanty was added, I got really excited. I was like, oh, awesome, we got a shanty in the game for this Tall Tale. Because I love getting shanties. We got the Yoho shanty with the Pirate's Life Tall Tales. So when I saw this one come up, I'm like, oh, cool, we got a new shanty with this in the second Tall Tale. That's pretty awesome. Turns out it went away after we finished this Tall Tale. It actually went away before you finish the Tall Tale. It goes away right after you capture the beast. So I got really excited and then extremely disappointed after I realized that you didn't get to keep that shanty. And it's also really disappointing because it's actually a pretty nice sounding shanty. It's a short one, so it's not like the other ones where like we'll keep on going, but it did sound nice, and I don't know why they wouldn't just let you keep that unlocked on your shanty wheel. It seems kind of odd to me. But like I said, this was my favorite part of the Tall Tale, not just because of the shanty and I thought the shanty sounded nice. I genuinely was bursting out laughing when you go and try to summon the beast with the shanty, and then it's like building up, the music's going all high and everything. And I kind of was expecting this once I started seeing the shadow, that something like this was going to happen. But then you just see this little parakeet, like this tiny little thing, just come out and then just hop down in front of you, and you have to pick it up bravely. And I don't know, that was definitely my favorite part of the Tall Tale. I thought it was just so funny, and it was definitely just a great, genuine moment. After that though, basically you get the ship deed from him, and then you take it back to Stan, and then eventually you lock Stan inside this wardrobe, and then you like steal the thing, and that's how you complete the thievery part of the trials. That was probably my favorite of the trials, just mainly because of the whole beast capturing thing, but also I thought Stan was cool, and the mechanics of like having him walk around with us and answering questions and things like that was also really cool. There is another mechanic though that was really interesting with this Tall Tale, and that was insult sword fighting. So I had heard about this for a while, but I wasn't sure how it was actually going to be implemented into the game. So basically the way it starts off is you have kind of like a tutorial where you go to this sword training guy, and he basically will teach you basically how it works. And the way it works is you attack the person, and then you can like insult them. You'll give like an option, it'll give you like a list of different insults to give. Or they'll attack you and they'll give you an insult, and then you have to do a retort to them. And then if you do well on the retort, or you do well with the insult, then you get a point, like it does damage to the other person. Or if you fail at it, it does damage to you. And the one thing that was a bit annoying to me with this is that you have to lose a bunch in order to learn new insults and new retorts. And while I do get that mechanic, it makes sense, and you're trying to kind of, it's how you would kind of build up that skill. You have to lose a lot. It was kind of annoying because you're like, oh, I could think of a good comeback to this, but I just don't have any options. So you have no option but to fail when you're doing it. Because after you do the tutorial training, you basically have to go around the island doing a bunch of random fights where most of them you'll lose until you can fight the like sword master person, whatever. And then once you fight that person, doing like the insult battle, and you win, that's how you finish the final trial. So all that was really fun. And then basically when you finish the 3 trials, it led to like the special brew that would wake up Guybrush from his curse. And Guybrush was like under this whole curse where he was thinking that he was the best thing ever, blah blah blah. And now that's all lifted. So then we're set up for the final Tall Tale that will be coming out hopefully sometime this month in September. We shall see. It's supposed to be setting us up to go to Monkey Island and fight LeChuck. Now I'm really interested to see how all that turns out. So in terms of like the gameplay and the story and stuff with this Tall Tale, I really enjoyed it a lot. I thought most of it was pretty fun. I didn't really like the intro part at the beginning where you had to like lower the fog and stuff, but once you got that part out of the way, it was great. There was some issues though. I ran into several bugs. One was with like just the mouth movement. I don't know if it's supposed to be synced properly with like what they're saying, but for me it was very jarring to me because they would be talking and their mouth would be closed, or when they're not talking their mouth would be open and stuff. So that was a little bit off to me. But then I had other issues where one time it kicked me out of the game when I was doing the Tall Tale. There was another time where I was trying to do one of the commendations and it locked me from being able to progress for it. So I basically had to leave it. And in order, if I want to do that commendation, I have to restart the entire Tall Tale in order to get to that point again. So there's been some bug issues that I haven't liked. And I also saw some graphical glitches with it as well. The experience wasn't that smooth. Honestly, it probably needed some more time to polish, but I feel like with all the delays Sea of Thieves has had, they didn't want to feel the wrath of the community by pushing it back any longer. Already they basically released it the last day of the month, so there wasn't like any more time that they could do it if they wanted to release it in August, on the time that they said they would release. So it was a tough situation. I would have liked a little bit more polish with this, but I wouldn't say this was like a huge buggy mess. It wasn't like other updates or other themes where there's just tons of bugs. Really, it was just those few things. It wasn't great, but it was playable and it was fine, and I enjoyed my experience. Some other things that are a little bit annoying for me with this, I would have liked there to be a feature that after I finished the Tall Tale, if I could go back just to explore Melee Island and not have to do the whole lifting of the fog and all that kind of stuff. Because I wouldn't mind just going in and exploring the island, but if you want to do that after you finish the Tall Tale, you basically have to redo the entire beginning where you lift the fog and everything like that. Not the end of the world. You can always do something where you like get to a certain point and then you just save your checkpoint and then you can just keep returning on that. It would have been nice if there was like a built-in feature that would let you kind of skip that part. And then obviously there was the other disappointments that I had mentioned earlier in this review with like the obsidian ship items not being able to purchase. I kind of expected that not to be able to, but with the Shanty, that was a big disappointment for me that you didn't get to keep the Shanty. Oh, and then of course, we have to talk about the reward you get with this Tall Tale. So the rewards for this Tall Tale and the previous Tall Tale I have found highly disappointing. They're not the worst thing ever. I think like the figurines we got in the previous Tall Tale were fine as like trinkets. And then the trinket that we got this time with the little like idol statue, that makes sense to an extent for me. But honestly, there was like better stuff that you could have chosen for this Tall Tale for like the rewards. Like, it seems very strange to me that the sword that we're carrying around for the insult sword fighting is not the thing that we got as the reward for this Tall Tale. Why is that not the reward? It just doesn't make sense to me at all. And I'm wondering, are they going to get that unlocked eventually? Or are they going to put in the Pirate Emporium and make us pay for it? I could definitely see that being an option. I'll be kind of annoyed if that's what happens. But also, I'm just kind of getting annoyed. Like, trinkets and stuff are fine, but if you're someone like me who plays mostly on a sloop, you only have so many spots that you can put trinkets in. And honestly, my ship's already filled with everything that I want it to have. I don't really have room to put anything else. So I would have liked to have seen to get that sword that we had carried around the game, or just the Shanty that we played. The Shanty would have been cool. I think it would have been cool as like a secret bonus reward that you get from doing that capturing the beast thing that we didn't know about, and then had like 2 other rewards. But even if that was one of the 2, that would have been fine with me. I just think it would have been better than the kind of boring painting that we got and a pretty ugly idol trinket, in my opinion. I would love to hear y'all's thoughts on the Tall Tale rewards. The Tall Tale rewards are definitely not the most important thing when it comes to like talking about the Tall Tale. Definitely the most important thing is like the gameplay and the story, but I do think it's an important part. My last thought on this Tall Tale was I feel like this should have been the first Tall Tale. The first Tall Tale was great. I enjoyed it a lot, but honestly, this makes more sense to me as like the start of the story than that did. Because with this one, like you find Guybrush in basically the same state as we saw him last time, but now you actually get to explore all of Melee Island and you're actually lifting the curse. It feels like you've actually progressed in the story. Whereas last time, nothing really happened that much other than LeChuck basically being aware of us by the end of it. So it would have made more sense to me if this was like part 1 of the Tall Tale and then the next one would have been something else, and then we have like our final big battle for the final Tall Tale. Maybe that's a little greedy, I don't know, but in terms of like just how the story progressed, that makes more sense to me. But taking a look at the Tall Tale as a whole, we got some bugs with it, we had some disappointments, but for the most part, I really enjoyed my experience with this. I felt like it was a nice update to have, especially in this kind of drought that we've had with Sea of Thieves content over this year. So this was definitely a nice welcome update, and I really enjoyed playing through the story and doing all the new mechanics that they added. One more point before I end this video though, I think it would be really cool if they made like a PvP mode with the insult sword fighting. Just something like silly, like maybe you could go to somewhere, even if it was just with your own crew. I think it would be really cool if you could do the insult sword fighting with other players. Probably will never come into the game, but that would just be really fun to try out. But that covers all my thoughts on this new Tall Tale and Sea of Thieves. Let me know in the comments below what you thought about this Tall Tale. Did you like it? Did you dislike it? Was there anything that you agreed or disagreed with me on in this review? Let me know down there. But if you enjoyed this video, it'd be great if you like and subscribe. And until next time, thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all later. Bye y'all.